today on this Good Friday. I think it's April 7th. Today we're going to talk about God's message in our lives. The messages that God is trying to communicate through our experiences in life, as well as possibly in more subtle ways. We're going to attempt to map out all the different categories of how God could be communicating with us, with an emphasis on the concept of truth and delusion, and how both of these are present in the human experience. So, thanks for joining. Let's get right into it. So, God has a message for and a line of communication with everyone, is my belief. And the message that we are being given by God is something that is visible in the experiences that we have in life. It's visible directly in our experiences, and God's message is also visible to us in less direct ways and more in like the quiet little messages that He's trying to get through to us, but we might be too busy and too loud all the time to notice. So the visible and then the less visible are the two main forms that we're going to talk about. So whether you believe in God or not, it is apparent that there are various life lessons around us all the time, and some of these are repeating lessons that we go through cycles, and we just keep passing back by these same lessons. Do you take the lessons that are knocking on your door, or do you end up passing them by and just moving on and, that's no big deal, right? So whether or not we believe in God, we can definitely agree that there's life lessons that we're circulating around. What I'm going to kind of get to is God sending you some of those life lessons? Like, are those emanations of God's truth trying to get through to you and trying to get you to make a better sense of your life experience? While I fully believe in God and I perceive this whole concept to be very spiritual and theistic in nature, in practical terms, it is these displays of truth, wisdom, and love which are the fruits of God's expression and the breadcrumb trail that is reaching to your conscious experience in an attempt to bring heaven back into your life trajectory. Okay, so to capture that idea, regardless of whether or not we believe in God, categorically, what God's messages for humanity would be are things that are going to emanate truth, love, wisdom, and all the different foundational archetypes of God. Those sorts of things that manage to get into our experience are in some capacity what we're trying to describe as God's message for us, okay? So even if you are totally atheist, maybe just look at this in light of life experiences and think about sorting through your mentality in order to better harvest these life experiences that are knocking at your door. So let's talk about archetypes in our mind and the framework with which we see things. Think about how your mind always has these different lenses that it's looking through. Some of these lenses are like naivety, where everything you look through, it just passes by and it doesn't make any sense to you. And then maybe on another side, there's these lenses where everything is like overly rigid and critical and analytical, and everything like flickers into a million pixels when you look at it and you kind of go crazy, right? So there's these big archetypal lenses, but then there's more like zoomed in ones, like the archetype of the hero, the archetype of the thief, the archetype of the lover, all these things, right? They're like shapes in your mind, right? Like you could be looking at the thief, like somebody doing something deceptive, and you might not even notice what you're looking at. It's just a person walking by doing something. You might notice something seems off, but you don't know what exactly you're looking at. But when your mind has the archetype of the thief, that lens, when it's looking through that lens, the scene you're looking at seems to slide right into place and sort of identify with that lens. It's as though these archetypal lenses are like patterns in your mind. They're patterns in your consciousness. And these patterns, I kind of liken it to a child. I have two kids, so a lot of child metaphors come up for me. But like, picture a kid playing with blocks, okay? You know the little thing where there's like the star block and the triangle block and the circle block, and then there's the different shaped blocks, and the kid has to like figure out which ones they go through. You know, super basic toy. But in our experience, I feel like our archetypal references of the world are kind of like these blocks. Like, different life experiences only slide through certain shapes, certain patterns in your consciousness. And our consciousness is always like toggling these things. It's always playing with the different lenses. It's not like you're stuck in one of them. But depending on how you're operating internally and how you're developing your mind, developing your intellect over time, you may be more or less adept at playing with these lenses or noticing them. right? So let's say you're looking at the archetype of the thief or the archetype of the hero, right? Like somebody's trying to reach out to you and really bless you and help you, or maybe somebody's trying to steal from you and be deceptive, you know? When you have the right lens and you're looking at it, it's as though the block slides right through. You know, like if you're looking for the archetype of the lover while you're looking at the thief, it just looks like it's passing by. There's nothing that slides through. It's not a direct fit. But the archetype of the thief or the archetype of betrayal, all these wider things, you know what I mean? Like the archetype of trust, you know what I mean? Like all these deep, deep things that are built into our heart. Archetype is kind of the best word I have for it, but it's kind of an ineffable concept. It's hard to talk about this kind of stuff in words, guys. So thank you for bearing with me and trying to dig into this new terminology with me so that we can discuss these really big, trippy ideas that seem relevant. So, archetype frames, patterns, kids with blocks. Whether we are assessing the outer messages of our life, like the things that are coming and going, like our life experiences, whether we're assessing those or the inner messages found through meditative quiet and prayer, we have to ask, is everything I'm perceiving the message that God is trying to convey to me? Is everything I'm experiencing symmetrical and it's all exactly what God is trying to say to me? Is that it? I would beg to differ. I think we need a slightly more elaborate way of analyzing this and discerning, or else we're going to fall into this new age kind of mentality where we just say everything is spirit speaking to me and everything is my truth and I know it for sure because I felt it and I experienced it. And when you look at the fruit that bears over time, it doesn't really tend to be very helpful for those individuals with the conviction, as well as for everyone else trying to discuss mysticism and things. I would like to be very technical and specific and create protocols and ideas that are going to be usable by lots of different types of people. I don't want to give you something that you're going to take and go become like manic and get overwhelmed with. And putting too much of a focus on God talking to you directly can easily go that direction. You can easily get a little crazy with that. So let's move on. The next section, we're going to really zoom in on truth and delusion and try to identify what these are and where they're at in your experience. Nobody wants to be delusional. It's no fun to think you're delusional. But it's also a little bit unrealistic to think that you're fully discerning truth, right? So let's break it all down. I'm going to start off with a very philosophical sentence and try to digest this one. While it may be true that you are experiencing a given experience, and also true that you have a feeling about what the meaning of that experience is, this does not suggest that you are not truly in delusion. It may be true that you are delusional, and the truth of what you're experiencing is you're in delusion, okay? Thus, to assess for truth that goes beyond delusion, we must account for the true nature of delusion itself as it pertains to our experience. Right? Intentionally complex statement, but I'm trying to play with words about the idea of truth and delusion and how it is actually true for you to experience delusion. It is true, like if someone is deceitful and lying, it's true that they're lying. Like, it's true that they're doing that, you know? But what they're doing is promoting something that is askew from truth, right? So there are some inherent paradoxical elements of our life in our experience as witnessing observers of this life. We are limited by a subjective reference. You're only ever seeing your little subjective lens that is limited, but we're in contact with objectivity, right? The idea of God is an objective, but even just physical reality. There's something outside of you. There's a color of the sky. There's physics principles. There's something happening that's objective, seemingly objective. You know, you can make a really big philosophical argument against that, but that's a whole nother can of worms. But there is something objective, and we are experiencing it through our subjectivity. We are in contact with truth, true experience, and yet we are always viewing it through some degree of delusion. So here's my little diagram for today. So there's the eyeball. That's you. It's probably all backwards on here, so I apologize for that. This is real basic though. You guys will get it. There's an eyeball. This is delusion, and then down here is truth. Okay? So like inherently, every time when you're looking, your little eyeball is looking at your life experience, you're looking through a field of delusion, right? And it's not always the same. That's why I put the little wiggly lines on there, and then the truth is the more straight lines. A horrible diagram, actually. Looking at it now on paper. Look at it on the screen. But you're looking from one point, and you're always looking through a field of delusion and potential for delusion. That's like your subjectivity. You know, like you've always got your conditioning, you've always got your limited reference. You know, you are inherently looking through a field of delusion. And then what's past that field of delusion? That's objective truth. Like that's like whatever's going on out there. That's like the sky is blue. That's like there's physics going on. That's like you're a biological being existing in a, you know, all of this. All the objective stuff is a part of this field of truth, right? And then you're always looking through your own field of delusion. Now, the shape of that field of delusion varies a lot. Sometimes we're maybe more symmetrically aligned with truth, and maybe sometimes we're bending the angles of truth to where we're very much looking at the field of delusion and identifying it as the field of truth. Okay, and that's where things can get a little wild. So looking at this diagram one more time, see out here, this other horrible part of the diagram, the little sun. So what I'm trying to identify over here is that, let's say the sun over here is light, okay? So we start turning the light up, like let's ramp the volume up on this whole diagram. If this whole thing is true, if it's true that this is your experience, like you're an eyeball looking through delusion and witnessing truth on some capacity, what if you turn up the volume on all of that? Like you start to turn the light up, like start to see the framework of how everything is actually shaped. When you turn that volume up, it's not as though truth just gets brighter. If you start seeing more of what's actually happening in front of you right now, you're going to get more truth and also more delusion. The field of your own delusion is going to become more perceptible, while the field of truth is also becoming more vivid and perceptible in some regard. So where does that leave you? Like, here we are a second ago, we were saying, is everything God's message for me and it's all God's just talking to me through everything I'm going through? Well, and now we're saying, oh man, I'm like looking through a giant bunch of weeds of delusion. So that brings us to our next questions here. Is everything I'm experiencing fake and delusion then? Is it all delusion and I'm just stuck in my head? No, I don't think that extreme is worth investing in either. Let's talk for a second about the idea, biblical archetypes, about angels and fallen angels for just a second. And we can make some more videos on this. If you guys are interested, please comment and we can go down any tangents and avenues that you guys would like to. But we're going to talk angels, fallen angels, and what does it mean as it pertains to truth? What do angels and fallen angels mean? So in the most condensed nutshell version, the word for angel in the Bible is melech, which means messenger, right? So it's something that's bringing God's message. Like God is kind of like outside of observable reality because he's in spirit and in something that's beyond our understanding, right? God sends messages down. Some of these messages are direct, like this angel is going to go and tell Mary this or whatever, right? But I think when we look at the archetype of what it is to have a message and be a messenger, as well as when you look into like metaphysical church history, like the perception of like Catholics and Orthodox Church when it gets into the choirs of angels and things like that, what you start to see is that the message of reality, like the message of what's in front of you, is in some capacity God's message. Like the angels in Orthodox and Catholic theology, they would say that like there's a layer of angels that involves like the movement of planets and like the things in nature, right? The motion of planets around the sun is a part of God's design. Like that's his message of how things work, right? So of course there's a melech. Of course there are messengers which pertain to the motion of things in physical reality, right? So whether an angel's like a winged thing flying and pushing the moon around, totally irrelevant, you know? But what we're talking about with the term melech is a messenger, and it's something that's bringing the message of what true reality is down into discernible bite-sized forms so you can chew on it and witness reality. So what is a fallen angel then, right? So it still is a message, right? It's still part of God's message, like it's a melech, but it's fallen, right? So let's try to like zoom out and think about what that looks like. So a holy melech, a holy angel, is something that is symmetrically aligned to truth, right? The messages that they bring are symmetrical to truth. So what is a fallen angel? It's something that has fallen out of that symmetry. it's like counter to truth. It's down here. It's still a part of reality. It's still a part of the message of the human experience in reality. Oh, are you okay, Ezekiel? What happened? You had to go inside?
I had cameras I could put hands up, and Mom said no.
I'm making video.
No adults is outside.
Come here. This is my son Ezekiel. He's having a moment. Hey, can you take him? I'm in the middle of a live recording. If you could not have any stuff come on this, like audio or whatever.
Well, hey, let's all go in the.
I'm almost done. I just have 5 more minutes.
Yeah, I have mushrooms all over my hands.
I'll be right in, Ezekiel.
You're not going to sleep on the bathroom.
Start the interruption, my friends. Thus is life. So, fallen angel is something that is contrary to the symmetry of what the holy message is, but it's still a part of reality. In some sense, it is still a shape. It is fallen angel is depicting part of the shape of reality. But when it comes to discussion of truth and delusion, you can see like where this distinction is at. That what a holy angel represents is something that is in line with truth, and then a fallen angel is something that represents something that is out of line with truth, is in the field of deception, in the field of destruction, in the field of death. You know, all these things that are contrary to the archetypes of God, life, goodness, wisdom, right? So, not going to unpack that anymore, but we've got angels and fallen angels. If you want to hear more about that, comment, and I'd be happy to go into that more. Because I love that topic, and that's actually where a lot of the biblical mysteries for me started, was studying the archetypes of angels. So is everything that I experience false and delusion because I'm looking through a subjective lens? No! Get out of the extremes of your assumptions. Thank you, Jason. I saw that comment pop up, and I appreciate that, and I will do some more videos on the angels if you're interested, my friend. So let's get out of the extremes of our assumptions. Let's quit assuming that everything is God talking to us, and then let's quit thinking that everything is just fake because you're limited to subjective reference. You know, let's try to hold something harmonious in the middle. Let's try to be realistic and stand in the middle of our experience, not going to either of those extremes. Let's let the water settle, like you're looking in the river, and all the water's all murky, and all the mud is all stirred up in it. Quit splashing around for a second. Just sit and just look. Touched on fallen angels in the past. Very interesting topic, one that is somewhat confusing to me. Yeah, I'd love to get on it. It's confusing to me too, honestly. A lot of these things are very like high-level philosophy, theological stuff that you've got to kind of just dig in and try to make sense of it as you go, and be humble enough to acknowledge that you like don't have the full picture. But I would love to make some more videos on that. I love the angel subject. So we're looking through this muddy water, and it's like we keep splashing around, just wanting more information, but it's like we need to let the water settle. Let all the ripples settle for a second. Let all the mud, the dust settle back down so you can look through clearly. You know, you're looking for all these extremes of everything's a message or nothing's a message. It's like, slow down. Let it all settle for a minute. Let it all settle for a minute. If you want God's truth, this is my advice on how to find this middle ground, right? If you want God's truth, don't make it all about your speculation and your experience. Quit trying to make it all about you. Quit trying to make God fit through the little hole that you've made for God to fit through. Quit being the gatekeeper that says God goes through right here, and if it doesn't look like this, it's not God. That mechanism in ourselves is inherently at odds with tuning into God's message. It's inherently inflating to our ego to want to have this gate. Don't be the gatekeeper, and then also don't be the wise man standing up and saying, "Thus saith the Lord, and I have experienced this truth," you know? Don't go to either of the extremes, because both of them were just winding up. Oh, somebody said greetings. They disappeared. Let's see if I can see them again. No, still gotta figure out how to do that. Except that you always try to do the talking in your experience. Like, you as an individual are obsessed with being the one who gets to say what's going on. You're the one who decides things. You're the one who gets to talk about everything. This is the self-idolization that is kind of in all of our hearts in some sense. And if you water it, it grows out of control and turns into a thorny bush. But if you, trim it up, like, it can be a manageable thing in our experience too. But understand that inherently you're always trying to grab the Holy of Holies and be like, got it. Except that you're always trying to do the talking and deciding by default. And learn to get out of God's way. If you want God's message, ask yourself and ask God where you can get out of the way. Where are you inhibiting the message? Where are you manufacturing delusion that is intentionally suffocating some of the truth that's trying to get through? Fun to see me on a road trip. I appreciate them, but yeah, I ramble for long periods of time. It's probably exhausting. Probably more exhausting than it is fun. So, accept that you always do the talking and deciding by default, and learn to get out of God's way. So, instead of idolizing yourself and making it all about you, and I know the truth, and me, and I'm the chosen one, and I'm a prophet, and all these things, we have to ask ourselves, am I a prophet or am I an adversary to truth, right? Which one am I? And on that note, I'm going to give a brief little Bible lesson, really short. Remember the part where Jesus is talking about he's getting ready to go to the cross, and he's like telling the apostles how it's like it's getting ready to go down, and I should have had the Bible on me, but he's saying that like he'll be taken and like killed, basically. He's saying like they're gonna come and stop me. And then Peter jumps up in front of him and he says, "Never, Lord, no, I will never let them take you." Like Jesus is telling him this is how it's going down. And then Peter jumps up and he's like, "I will defend the truth, and I am here to," like he's basically saying like, I'm gonna guard you no matter what. I know what's up. And then what does Jesus say to him? He doesn't say, "Oh, thanks, bro." He looks and says, "Get behind me, Satan." He's pointing at Peter, right? But what he's talking about is not that Peter literally became the devil. It's that he is becoming a messenger for adversity, for the adversary. He is being an adversary to God's mission because Peter thought he had it figured out. And he's like, "I'm the prophet. I've got the message. I know what's up. I know I've got to defend Christ." But it's like in that moment, his ambition was misplaced. His ego was pointing in the wrong direction. His heart was pointed in the wrong direction. And while he was trying to stand up and pull the sword out to defend God, he was actually pulling his sword out against God. It's humbling to think about because that's something that happens for all of us, especially the people that are trying to be mystics and trying to be pursuing spiritual truth. You know what I mean? Like it's a delicate territory, my friends. It's delicate. I'm not here to discourage you and say stop doing it. I'm encouraging you to be humble and to refine your assumptions. Refine your assumptions so that you don't have to live in delusion. Okay? So Peter and the adversary, self-idolization. We're almost done. So there's a saint. I've been trying to find which saint this was, but years ago I was listening to, it was either a Catholic thing or an Eastern Orthodox. I'm not either of those. I like Eastern Orthodox the most, but it was from one of these old school church traditions, and they were referencing a saint. Maybe one of you guys can help me with this. If you can Google and figure out which saint this was, I would appreciate it. Because I tried Googling it, I could not find it, but I know for a fact that this is the story of a saint, right? And what the gist of the story is that I got from hearing it a couple of years ago is this saint person was all about having like mystical experiences. Like they had like stuff where God's talking to them and visionary stuff, like powerful stuff happened. And the advice that they had in like their writing or in what they said to their students or whatever it was is that they said when you have a mystical experience and God approaches you with something, that what you should do is run away from it. Flee from it. And a lot of mystics nowadays, you hear that like, "Oh, it hurts my heart. Oh, why would you run from God?" But what they were getting at is super, super deep. And when I heard the whole idea unpacked, I thought there was a lot of wisdom in it. What the idea is they're saying that like when God sends you a message, it's gonna get through to you perfectly. No matter what you do, God is gonna get the message through to you. Whereas when Satan sends a message to you, when there's a message that has a deceptive foundation to it, it's gonna want to try to grab you. So if you walk away from that lesson, it's gonna like try to entice you and grab at you some more. Where if God sends you a message, you can walk away from it and it'll come back up in the perfect time and in the perfect way, and it's just gonna be like full of peace and grace. There's not gonna be like a question. You're not gonna have to fight. You're not gonna have to, like in shamanistic terms, you don't want like stealing the holy fire, right? You don't have to steal any holy fire with God's messages. Like He will give them to you in the perfect format. So I thought that was an interesting saint wisdom, was that when the mystical stuff happens, don't like charge into it, be like, oh, I'm the Holy One, I've had a vision, which is kind of what we like to do. And that's why that's so popular in the New Age. So many people like acting like they have become like the mouthpiece for God because they had some kind of vision or mystical thing. It's like, dude, I have had so many crazy mystical things happen in my life, sober, plant medicines, everything in between. I've had so much crazy mystical stuff. And what has always been put on my heart through those experiences is to not raise myself up and not make myself a prophet and not start declaring absolute truth and all this. I can speak with conviction about my experiences, but I'm not going to speak with conviction on behalf of God. I'll try to speak about my experience. So, the saint wisdom: run from the mystical awe and give Satan no room to infiltrate. God's mystical truth will always follow peaceably, while Satan's distracting counterfeit will entice and tempt. Right? Kind of interesting. So if we're thinking we all have truth and we all have delusion, this protocol seems to kind of make sense. It seems to be like a healthy operating protocol for us to walk through our experience, which is a mix of truth and delusion. And so we don't end up grabbing onto delusion and acting like it's truth, Kind of interesting. So, what lesson is God trying to tell me? What's the lesson that he's telling me? You tell me what the lesson is. I'm not here to tell you what God's message for you is. I'm here to encourage you to tell yourself. But then again, I'm also challenging you to not focus so much on telling even yourself, but slowing down and listening. Maybe the thing you're thinking is God's message. Rasta, I'm very close to the Rasta community, but I am not technically a Rastafarian, and my theology is different than them, but I do believe that what Selassie did is a part of the fruiting vine of Christ, and that the Holy Spirit is working through that community. And the specifics of where I differ in that theology is a bigger discussion. So to discern what God is trying to tell you, quit telling yourself what God is telling you. Like, slow down. Go back to the beginning and just be quiet. Do that saintly thing. Run away from all the convictions that you think you have and go back to start and pray. Just be quiet and listen. See what happens. Sometimes the thing that God is trying to tell you is not some new like trippy thing where you've like seen the nature of reality and you're like, oh, I know the truth now. Sometimes what God is trying to tell you is an age-old lesson. And it's something that you've been circling around for years and years and years. And every couple of years of your life, you get back in view of that lesson. But then you just walk away and you come back around, And you're sitting here thinking, what's God trying to say to me? Where is he trying to give me a vision? And it's like, dude, sometimes he's been giving you the vision through that little experience. And like, you're just too focused on self-idolization. You're looking for an aha moment. You're looking for some like, oh my gosh, I'm so special. I finally had a vision. And sometimes what's keeping you from having the vision is the fact that you're not just taking the lessons that are already being given to you. On that note, final thing, and then this is the end of the video, and I'm proud of myself. I did it in 30 minutes this time. Go Zach. So, take the lesson or become the lesson. Okay? This is something I've talked about with my friends in my inner circle for years. Something that's been on my heart since before I met Christ. It was like shamanistic kind of concept for me, and it has just been clarified and refined in Christ even more. Take the lesson or become the lesson. So let's say here's a lesson in reality, and then here's you circling around it. And every year, whatever, you come back around that lesson and you pass it up, right? Let's say the lesson that God's trying to show us here is, don't be a drunk idiot. Okay? Don't be a drunk idiot. And then every year, you're drinking too much. Well, every year or so, maybe you catch a glimpse of that. And you're kind of like, I kind of see I'm being a drunk idiot. I need to kind of point away a little bit. And maybe you do. Maybe you do point a little bit. But then year comes around. You catch another glimpse of it. You're still kind of being a drunk idiot. The lesson's showing through. God's like, yo, quit being a drunk idiot. Circle around. Another year comes by. Catch another glimpse of it. Okay? So, either you take that lesson, either you take the lesson that God has been trying to communicate to you and grow from it and gain the virtue and move forward, or inevitably you become that lesson for somebody else. and this is the intense, freaky part, my friends, you will become that lesson. You will become the one who teaches other people what it is to be a drunk fool, because you have not taken the lesson, and instead you have concretized your archetypes. You have built yourself into the story of what it is to be the drunk fool. And so then what happens? Here you are, circling, 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 and now here's you, right? Here's somebody else, another friend of yours circling around. Every time they see you now, they see the archetype of what it is to be the drunken fool. And they have to ask themselves, do I want to join that camp too, or do I get a good one around? Maybe they circle around 5 times and then wind up locking into your trajectory. And all of a sudden you guys are both the drunk fools and other people circling around, okay? So in life, we're either taking the lessons that God is attempting to give us, or we are, oh, I can't, it disappeared. Hold on a second, guys. The comments disappeared. I don't know how to do Facebook, or I don't know how to do YouTube yet. But you either take these lessons, or you end up becoming those same lessons. And in short, the way that I've tried to poetically phrase it to capture it is, the more that we ignore the lessons being shown to us to encourage growth and virtue, the more that we embody the inverse of these virtues, and we make said lesson more visible to our peers through the representation that we have provided through our own foolishness. Pretty deep, right? I'll say it again so you guys can absorb it. The more that we ignore the lessons being shown to us to encourage growth and virtue, the more we embody the inverse of these virtues and make said lessons more visible to our peers through the representation that we've provided through our foolishness. Okay? So that's the ending note on it. It's up to you to discern what is God's truth for you and what is where your delusion is. But I can tell you for sure that you are looking through some degree of delusion. And I can also tell you for sure that if you're not trying to account for that in your experience of sorting through truth, you're probably defaulting to calling delusion truth. You know, that's just like how it is. You know what I mean? It's like, unless you're attempting to look through the delusion, you are absolutely gripped by the delusion. And when we look at life lessons as a whole, same concepts there, but it's a little more vicious. You know, it ain't just about whether or not you're like being delusional while you're staring off in the clouds and seeing something. With the life lessons, it gets intense, because the question is like, are you learning things that make you a better person, or are you becoming more of a fool that will inevitably teach other people to not be like you? You know what I mean? And I don't mean to be harsh, but we all have this. I have elements of this in my own life. You know, it's not like I'm like some enlightened person that has overcome this. It's more me being humbled by how real it is and how likely I am to be a fool and to teach other people how to be a fool. Got to be careful. Got to be careful with what we do, with our time, with our footsteps, and with everything, you know? So on that note, I will end in a prayer and go ahead and close this down before it gets too incredibly long. Thank you, God. Thank you for bringing me here today, bringing me here before my online friends. Thank you for helping this channel to grow. I ask that you give me your wisdom and your voice so that I can speak good things and inspire people towards godly walk and towards questioning things which may be foolish in our lives. Help me to walk with the wisdom more so than I do already. Help me to challenge myself and be a good person so that I can be a good example. Help me to not be a fool, teaching other people to be a fool. Amen. Thank you guys for joining. Please comment and subscribe and like the video and all of that stuff. I would really appreciate getting up in the algorithm more. And anything you guys want to learn about and talk about, I would love to make some more videos. Let me see if I can get to the comments. Let me see. Live chat. Okay, here they are. Here they are. The more you wake up and clean your vessel, the more you are not in delusion. Specifically, are meant to wake up. Now it is the last life here. No more recycling. I hope this is. I feel you. I don't believe in reincarnation personally, but I do feel you on some of that. Like, we are meant to wake up and clean the vessel and get the delusion scrubbed out, you know? But the thing is when the delusion is fully scrubbed out, I don't think it looks like us automatically just having a perfect line of truth all the time. It's more about us having this stuff I just described fully like parsed out so that you can like regularly know that you're on the phone with Delusion and be like, all right, hold on, you gotta shut up for a second, let me listen. You know what I mean? Like knowing that you're kind of on the phone with both is kind of the model of how I see it. Yeah, but yeah, thank you guys for commenting and everything. I really appreciate it. And I see a couple of likes coming in, so I'm figuring out how to do this whole thing, figuring out how to do the YouTube thing. Do you guys like the live videos? Would you rather me do like edited videos? You know, I'm trying to do the live thing. I've heard it's better for the algorithm, and I get less anxious just spitting it out. Because if I edit it and all that, I'm gonna go crazy just trying to like adjust it more and more. And yeah, there's only so much time in the day. So very much open to your guys' criticism and your input, and any ideas you have about other videos you'd like to see. Like I said at the end of the last video, I know that my channel has people on here for a lot of different reasons, and I'm mostly talking like Christian mysticism now, and it's okay if that scares you away. I don't expect to keep anybody happy, but there is going to be a lot of other content too. I've got another raw vegan food video prepared, and that one should be pretty fun. I know a lot of you are here for that. And I've also got another video of how to prepare the Amanita muscaria 2.7 pH tea technique. And that one I believe is probably going to be the most popular, because I know a lot of you guys are here for plant medicine information. So thank you for joining me. Have a great day. God bless.